Hi, and welcome to another episode of Rule of Carnage. This is where myself, Glenn Ford, a games designer and developer, talks to this guy, Mike Hutchinson, a game designer and developer, about designing, developing, making, and putting out better miniatures games. Now, recently in the Discord, we've got a lot of very talented people designing games in the Discord, and people wondering about whether to go the self-publishing route, whether to find a publisher. And it is a conversation that comes up fairly often, and it sort of popped up again sort of just recently. And I think we've been sort of considering this question, both of us at the moment, ironically, in sort of slightly different directions, because as Mike has sort of announced you've recently gone full-time game designer and are looking at doing some self-publishing. And obviously I've self-published and now I'm sort of working with a publisher. And so I thought we'll talk a bit about that. And particularly, I guess we'll start with I'll say, so, Mike, I know you've got a few projects that you're sort of lining up working on. Do you want to talk a bit about those and which ones you're moving towards self-publishing with, and why you've made those decisions, sort of, because obviously you've worked with a publisher quite a bit in the past, and you're now in the position of having the choice of which way to go, I think, rather than like taking the first sort of hand that is offered. And so
Yeah.
what's motivating those choices, and where's that coming from?
Yeah. So what have I got? I've got 4 books now through publishers, Gaslands Twice, A Billion Suns, and Hobgoblin. And those have been just through 2 publishers, Osprey and Electi Studios. So I guess I'll just preface this by saying, like, I don't have the broadest experience of publishers, but those are 2 quite specific and different publishers. So I've got a lot of excitement and plans and dreams about what kind of games I would make. And I think that at the beginning of this conversation is my desire for a game like Gaslands to be the best that it can be, and to, I suppose, have an opportunity for me to dream up what the best version of that game might be, and then have a go at thinking about where I could put it out. And I think that this is where, for me, the beginning of the real tension exists, because I'm at the moment having to think for each of the games that I'm considering, and I guess I'll go into some of those maybe a little bit more, like why one might be better or not better for. But I think that publishing just gives you a broader ability to speak to an audience. Like, you can speak to more. If the publisher is established, then they already have built a market. They've got some awareness of their products, and so you are launching into a sales channel that already exists. And with Osprey, that's, very, very much true. Like, they have, spinning carousels in retail bookshops. They have, a well-known sort of river of board games and war games, so that people are alert to a new Osprey title coming out. And so that, for Gaslands, was absolutely essential. Like, I think if I have self-published Gaslands, there's a small possibility that the quality of the game would have allowed it to catch fire, from a grassroots level, but I think it's highly unlikely, and it was certainly much more likely to have achieved success with the Osprey Launchpad. So I think that's the first thing for me is, or for anyone thinking about this, is, do I already have an audience, and do I already have a sales channel, or am I looking for one? And I think it's been fun, um, following along some of the folks on YouTube. So, Snarling Badger, who have done Rain in Hell, and I can't remember the Space Station one, maybe Space Station Z. I can't remember the name of it right now. But those guys have done something really interesting, which is they have taken advantage of a huge audience that they've already built. Vince Vicelli has got, enormous following on YouTube, and that's obviously if we could all do that, that'd be fabulous. And so that is like that's the self-publishing route that makes sense for the same reasons that using a publisher does. The second part of it is that I hadn't the faintest idea. No, I'll be more specific. I hadn't the faintest interest in figuring out how to make and produce and sell books. And I remember having this conversation with you quite early on, where I was super motivated to get a game out in the world, but I only wanted to do it if the things that I did were writing the game and writing the game alone, and somebody else worried about, commissioning art and putting the layout together and making the books and selling the books. Because I knew that 7 or 8 years ago, that was not at all, that wouldn't be what I would enjoy spending my time doing. And that's a purely personal preference. It was, I think, it was happy that I identified that in myself so that I could focus on the things that I wanted to focus on. But that actually meant that I was 100% not going to self-publish. So it wasn't a question of I would prefer to publish, and if I don't, I'll self-publish. It was like, well, I'll either have a published book or I just won't have a game out in the world, because it's not, I wasn't in a place in my career and family life where that made sense, and I didn't want to do it. And then the um, the flip side of that, I suppose, is artistic control, isn't it? You lose a lot of control when you are putting a product out through somebody else's studio, somebody else's product sort of range. It has to fit within what they do. It has to fit within what they're used to manufacturing, in order to be a successful product inside a larger company that has staff to pay and warehouses to fund. Like, they have to make sound decisions based on the way that their business is scaling and the things that it's focusing on. So going in the other direction and self-publishing can potentially be this incredible freedom to choose exactly the way that you want the product to exist. But this goes back to the beginning, which is really, if your objective is to reach the biggest market, is your objective to have the product that's the most specifically how you want to make it? And I think that maybe, this is what I'll find out over the next 18 months, like I've maybe landed myself in a place where I can do both to a degree. Like I've got now the sort of audience sales channel, nothing like the scale of Offspray, but I've got some attention, and I can use that to combine having somebody that I can sell to and having the perfect thing that I've got, artistic control over. That was a little bit rambly, but you see what I mean.
I think, yeah, that basically your position and what you want from the process has changed primarily.
Yeah, that's right. Coming into 2024, I'm still really focused on, I want to be the guy writing the games and making the games, and that, I think, is underpinning my decision to be an independent creator and not make a company. I don't want to make a company. I don't want staff. I don't want overheads like that. And that's because I want to do the work. But I'm also excited by the breadth of some of the other parts of the work, like doing the graphic design and the layout and the product design, and figuring out how to get these games published and produced overseas, and get them sold through Kickstarter and get them shipped into people's hands. Because what I recognize at the moment is that in order to produce the object that can convey the game experience, which I have in my head, I'm going to have to take the reins on a bunch of that stuff. And it wasn't feasible when I was also doing a full-time job, as I was during all those other books. But maybe it is, and maybe by doing that, I end up with something that's just that much higher quality as a product. That's the hope, anyway.
Yeah, and I think that sort of, in sort of trying to distill that into like a piece of usable advice for people, like, you know, figuring out what you want to take on and what you're interested in doing. Because it's like, although you said that you don't want to run a business, if you self-publish, you are doing a lot of the bits of running a business. You're just not like scaling up to actually employ people. You're going to have to, learn logistics and deal with
Right, and I think that's the second nugget that I'm trying to convey, which is be clear about the scale of success which is sustainable with regards to what you want to do with your time.
Mm,
Because if I had a huge successful Kickstarter, if I accidentally 10x'd what I was expecting to do on Kickstarter because Mattel decided to promote me or something, like
mm,
that'd be awful. Like that would
mm.
essentially ruin my life,
Yeah.
because I'd suddenly have to do a thing that I absolutely didn't want to do and hadn't signed up for. And so being I'm not saying be realistic in terms of that, but like being mindful about, well, is that scale of success actually joyful for you, or is that, you know,
No, no, absolutely. I think 100%. And this is one of the things about if we get into doing a video that's like advice for Kickstarter, I'd say one of the biggest piece of advice is that any level of success can be, numbers don't dictate whether or not you were successful. Achieving what you wanted to achieve is what is dictating that you'll
right,
success.
yeah. And so it might be obvious, or it might seem obvious, that like having the most people knowing about your game and playing your game and saying nice things about your game is the always the goal. But I think it might be having the right number of people, having a sustainable community, having a community that is big enough to keep the game being played and keep it being talked about and keep it, being something that you can sell into for whatever monetary thing you're looking for from this. Because if it's a hobby, it's one thing. If it's a side gig, it's another. If it's a full-time gig, it's a third. And so that is where I'm trying to figure out right now, like where is and I keep using this word sustainable, but that's what I mean. Like I want to sustain the ability to keep focusing on games design
Mm.
and making cool products. And there's some level that's, specific to my situation and, my family life and so forth, that will make that work. And I want to be clear about that. And so that's actually one of the reasons why I've chosen quite strongly to go self-publishing, because if you are tied to royalties through a book publisher, then you lose control of a couple things. One is you lose control of the pace of releasing. So you aren't really, like, if you start running out of money, you can't quickly write a book and publish it. That's not how publishers work. And the other is that you are part of, you're getting a small percentage as part of a massive ecosystem that involves logistics and other people's pays and pensions and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so for me, like, I looked at what I was making from the royalty checks that I was getting from the small scale successes that I was having. Could I write enough games and publish them through enough publishers for that to add up to a full-time gig? No, I just can't. It's not feasible for the thing that I'm trying to get to. Whereas self-publishing and running, either running a web store, building up a catalog, or running, periodic Kickstarters, so that there's always a spike of cash, once or twice a year. That I can see that being a feasible way of running a solo maker's gig.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've sort of looked into this more on the board game side, but I imagine it's a similar sort of thing. Is that the people who are full-time game designers that put things out through a publisher have got like 4 or 5 games like in the works with a publisher literally at any given moment. And you need to put out like 4 or 5 games a year to be able to like pay the rent on something like that.
And chatting to some of the like older guard games designers, like some of the ex GW people, a lot of them are combining this with a portfolio that involves like doing writing for video games, because there's a ton of money over there. And so, that again is a question of like, well, how much time do you want to spend doing the thing which is making miniature games? And for some people who are very well known in miniature games, the answer is like, well, it's not feasible for them to make that work.
Yeah, whereas as a self-publisher, you can get a bigger percentage of each sale because you are half the people who the percentage was originally going to for a publisher.
And that's what's so strange, is like, okay, so I make more money, I can't reach as many people, so I don't make as much money, but I make a better percentage. So um there was an indie games designer who reached out to me, I will remain in confidence. But they were like, well, I've been self-publishing for about 15 years and I feel like I've been doing all right, but I'm thinking about something like Osprey, like, can we compare numbers? And we quietly compared numbers, and we concluded that we'd made about the same amount of money. I'd hit more people, but he'd made a bigger percentage. And so it kind of netted out. And I really sort of believe that can be true. Um, so yeah, to a degree, it's easier because, well, I only have to build, an audience of 500, 1,000 players who are interested, and that could be a sustainable uh, sort of customer base to sell into, rather than thinking, well, I have to hit 50,000 people or I've failed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But then at the same time, obviously, the self-publishing comes with it risks that going with a publisher
That's right.
doesn't bring, and that's sort of, I think, probably for a lot of people, a significant part of it is that if you're self-publishing, even if you're going through Kickstarter, which covers a lot of the risk bases, you have to turn up these days with artwork. You have to put investments into it. You have to sort of put more of the money up front than you do if you go through a publisher. So there is more of a risk reward element to it.
Right, and to be clear about going through a publisher, like, it's not that there's less risk, there's almost no risk.
Yeah.
Like, the only risk to you as an individual is that you fucked it up so bad that the publisher's like, I'm never working with this joker again. But honestly, because you're not paying for the artwork, you're not paying for the manufacturing. um it's really your reputation that's on the line and not a lot else, as opposed to having a pot of savings that you've got kind of two projects maybe to prove yourself, and the first couple of projects go down the pan, but you've spent money on on making components or making artwork. So yeah, 100%, it's very real. And I think that's the other thing about why my head is in a different place from 7 years ago to now is, I'm in a position where I'm in a privileged position where I can feel that my capacity for risk is higher, both because I've got some savings, but also because I've got some proof from the Hobgoblin Kickstarter and from the success of Gaslands that there is an audience out there that will recognize my name and will follow that with opening their wallet. And so that, you know, I'm not uh I'm thankful and not minimizing that, but I think that's the consideration of, like, for one's first game, does one self-publish or go through a publisher?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Definitely.
obviously, you went through a publisher, and I think, if we can sort of draw some conclusions from your personal history there, it's a certain amount about the time you had available and the things that were of interest to you to engage with, to choose and sort of get your elbows into. And now is it because you want more creative control? Is it because that's the primary sort of driver? It's an artistic decision on your part, really wanting to.
Yes, yeah, like, the vast majority of this decision is that I have a vision of the kind of game product that I think is cool, and I'm not interested in anyone else's opinion on that right now.
So
Because
I think,
I'm not sure I've had enough evidence of their opinions being better than mine, but I've had a lot of control put on me.
and I suppose what that is one of the things to say is, like, not everybody has strong opinions about every detail of every project. I've got plenty of projects where it's like, this is sort of a Weird West game. There's some sort of ideas. I'm happy for an artist to come in and define the look of that world, let's say. I'm fairly happy that the layout be anything of like a readable format. And there are other things where you want to say, no, no, this is what this world looks like. This is what this page should look like. This is the way in which someone should feel in their fingertips when they pick up the book. And it's okay to have like different feelings about different projects. And I think also to realize, which of those things and how much those things matter to you at different stages in your life. Just because there was a point where you didn't know how much some of those things mattered to you. And possibly, I don't know, you could tell me, possibly there's been a bit of a learning curve there of feeling like I want to get a game out to as many people, and then you physically see the game and you go, I didn't realize that that page looking like that mattered to me that much.
Right,
But
right.
it's like nailed on a chalkboard, and never again I shall wrest it back from their hands and make it look the way that it looked in my dreams.
Yeah, to a degree. Okay, so that was sort of the why should you choose publishers over self-publishing half of this conversation. So maybe we'll come back next week, and Glenn's followed the opposite trajectory, and maybe we'll ask Glenn about why he chose that route rather
Yep,
than the
that would
ones.
be most splendid. Um, I'm sure a lot of people watching this video, are considering publishing, looking to a publisher, self-publishing. It's probably a good few people that have gone through the self-publishing route, or even gone to a publisher. We'd love to hear like people's personal experiences with the process, why they went the way they did. So please stop down in the comments section and let us know, which path you're considering, why you're thinking of going down that route, or if you have some experience, please share it with everybody. While you're down there, hit on like and subscribes, and then follow across to the Discord. Let us know in there which path you're considering, why, have that conversation. Also, follow across to the Patreon link down below to give Mike some support and encourage the channel to keep going. But other than that, I think for this conversation, yeah, it'll be a thank you, goodbye. So thank you and goodbye. Bye
Goodbye.
bye.